So, let's talk about a real paradox. There's this guy, Ed Thorp, a mathematician with what seemed like ice in his veins, who basically did the impossible. First, he figured out how to beat the casinos at blackjack. So well, in fact, they had to change the rules. Then, he took his genius to the biggest casino in the world, Wall Street, and he built one of the most successful investment funds ever. This guy didn't just manage risk. He kind of solved it.
But then you hear this from the man himself, and this isn't some minor footnote. It's like the central lesson of his entire life. The man who designed a perfect engine for making money is telling you he's scared to put the pedal to the floor.
And that's the real question here. The thing that's so unsettling about this whole story. Thorp helped discover a formula to get rich as fast as the laws of math will let you. But when it came to his own money, his own life, he deliberately held back. He chose not to be optimal. Why? Well, the answer really messes with our whole idea of what it means to be rational.
See, to really get why he was so cautious, you first have to understand the incredible, seductive power of the idea he was dealing with. An idea so powerful, it's been called fortune's formula. The Kelly Criterion is all about one simple question. When you have an edge, how much should you bet? The formula gives you the exact, perfect percentage of your money to risk to get the fastest possible growth over the long run. Not just a fast way to get rich. We're talking about the single quickest path that mathematics allows. It's basically rocket fuel for your bankroll.
Now here's where it gets really clever. Most models figure out returns by averaging thousands of possible futures. But here's the thing. You don't get to live 1,000 lives at once. You live one life, one day at a time. The Kelly formula is genius because it optimizes for your single path, what's likely to happen to you, by making sure you never, ever go to zero. Because for you, going broke isn't just a bad outcome, it's game over.
So, the math is beautiful, it's perfect, it's elegant. But what Thorp found out is that actually living with that perfection, it's a kind of psychological torture. This is where the clean world of theory just slams head-on into the messy, panicked reality of being a human.
Okay, so what does that really mean in practice? Well, it comes down to this one number. Just look at it for a second. If you follow the formula perfectly, if you bet the full optimal amount every single time, there's a 50-50 chance, a coin flip, that at some point on your journey, you will have to watch half of your entire net worth just vanish. Not that it might happen, it's a statistical probability.
And that is a roller coaster that almost nobody can actually stomach. Thorp, the math whiz himself, was the first to admit it. The numbers on the page might be rational, but that feeling in your gut as you watch your wealth get cut by 30, 40, 50%, that's not rational at all. He realized the pain, the scar tissue from a massive loss was so much worse than the excitement of a big win. That's a human truth the formula just can't account for.
All right, picture this. We're back on the casino floor, where this whole thing started. Thorp knew he had a mathematical edge. It was proven. But he talked about catching himself doing irrational things, like secretly taking a few chips off the table and putting them in his pocket. It was his survival instinct kicking in, fighting against the cold, aggressive logic of his own perfect system. His brain knew the answer, but his body was just trying to survive the ride.
And it's that battle, right there, that led him to this absolutely terrifying discovery. The problem wasn't just the emotional whiplash. It was a hidden, dangerous imbalance in how risk actually works, a secret trap waiting for anyone who gets too greedy.
Okay, look at this curve. This visualizes the whole trap perfectly. The Kelly formula points you to the very top of that hill, the absolute maximum growth you can get. If you bet a little less, you slide down the left side. Your growth is slower, sure, but you're safe. But look what happens if you get greedy. If you bet just a little too much, you go over the peak to the right, and your returns don't just get smaller, they fall off a cliff straight to zero.
In this table, it just lays it all out, crystal clear. Betting too little just means you get rich slower, no big deal. But betting too much, it's a catastrophe. If you bet double the optimal amount, your long-term growth rate literally goes to zero. You are taking on insane amounts of risk for absolutely no reward. Go any further than that, and you are mathematically guaranteed to go broke, even with a winning hand.
And listen, this isn't just some theory from a textbook. This is basically the autopsy report for almost every huge financial blow-up in history. Long-term capital management, Lehman Brothers. These weren't dumb people. They were rooms packed with Nobel Prize winners who thought they had an edge, got greedy, pushed their bets just past that peak, and drove their companies right off that cliff. So, what do?
Thorp had a choice. He could follow the cold, hard math and try to balance perfectly on that razor's edge, or he could build a strategy that he, a flesh and blood human being, could actually live through. To him, the choice was obvious.
He decided to use what's now called half Kelly, and the trade-off he made is honestly one of the best deals in finance. By betting only half of what the formula told him to, yeah, he gave up about a quarter of his potential growth. But in return, he slashed the terrifying volatility in half. That coin flip chance of losing 50% of his money, it dropped all the way down to about 12%. He traded a little bit of optimal for a whole lot of survivable.
And really, this quote from him just says it all. He realized the goal wasn't to have the biggest winning year. The goal was just one thing: stay in the game. To get rich, you first have to survive.
And the results of that mindset? I mean, they're legendary. His first fund ran for 19 years and lost money in only 3 months total. His single biggest loss was less than 1%. He built one of the greatest track records in history, not by being the most aggressive guy in the room, but by being the hardest one to kill.
Which brings us right back to where we started, back to that paradox. This tension between the perfect answer on a piece of paper and the flawed human who has to actually live with the results. And it leaves all of us with a really personal final question.
If the mathematically perfect path is so brutal that the guy who helped discover it won't even take it, if squeezing out that last little bit of performance is the very thing that puts you on the road to ruin,
Then what does optimal even mean? The formula gives you an answer for a number on a spreadsheet, but Thorp's story teaches us that the real answer is about surviving the journey. And figuring out what's survivable for you, well, that's a calculation no formula is ever going to solve.